Okay, so now in the game of Pokemon, trainers are supposed to teach Pokemon how to become the better Pokemon so that they can beat the entire game in like the Elite Four and other gym leaders. And now just like in the real world, California's educational system has simply just become underfunded. And now we can see that through my 3 main points of analysis. The first one is being that the lack of new materials in the cuts of programs are taking a big toll on California's educational system. Just like Pokemon, we need the resources and textbooks and things like that in order to have our students become better learners. And second, teachers are being laid off and schools are lowering standards. Such as test scores need to can be lowered, and there is a big curve that is really taking a big toll on California's educational system as well. And my third main point, which is basically California's educational system is facing a lot of different budget cuts. So now let me go back to my first main point. Basically, students aren't receiving the amount of the teaching materials and textbooks that they need in order to become better students. There's a lot of budget cuts, and a lot of the budget that school districts are getting is mainly going to the teachers. For my school, teachers are getting new iPads, and basically agendas are getting cut. So students really need agendas in order to have that time management and in order to keep on task on what they need to get done. Also, there are things such as French and other different languages, also health that is being cut from our schools as well. Freshmen going into high school really need those programs in order to better themselves and to be able to go out into the real world. Now, let me move on to my second point, which is basically teachers are being laid off. Let's look at this in the Pokemon world as gym leaders aren't there to train against. Now, in order to do this, teachers being laid off takes a big toll on students in California's educational system. Basically, we're hiring different teachers which don't have the teaching experience and don't have the higher degrees such as masters and things like that. Instead, they have bachelor's degrees. And that's kind of making our students not learn what they need to learn, and they're not preparing themselves to go into college. And we can look at that through San Diego's Unified School District. Basically, 1,400 teachers out of 7,000 teachers are being laid off. Basically, that's 1 in 5 teachers in every single school district. Because there is an $80 million deficit to a $122 million deficit that San Diego is facing, many teachers are being laid off. We can also look to the National Council on Teacher Quality of 2011. 20% of San Diego's teachers are being laid off. Now, if you were to put any other state and combine their percentages of teachers being laid off, it couldn't even amount to San Diego's, Long Beach's, and Sacramento's all put together. And that's almost around 60% of California's educational system. Now let me move on to, let me also go to one of my other sources, which is the LA Times of April 2012. Now they're proposing that 25% of credits don't need to be completed. So it basically moves down from 230 credits down to 170. Also, D is going to become a passing grade. Now, that's going to really ruin California's educational system. Basically, since I'm an engineer, I'm going to refer back to an engineer. Engineers can have a D in a class and still get a job in the future. Now, how is that going to really help us with our infrastructure throughout the entire USA? Basically, a lot of the infrastructures that are going to be built within the next 10 years can basically collapse anytime. Now let me move on to my third point, which is that the educational system is facing a lot of budget cuts, and it will be in the following years. All of my sources are from Examiner.com. The first one states that right now we're facing a $28 billion state deficit. Also, because of the $15.8 trillion deficit that the national debt, a lot of cuts are being made to California's educational system. A lot of the money that is being given to us is basically going on to war efforts and also like Obamacare, and basically none of it is going to be going to the educational system. Only 40% of the money is going to be put into California's educational system, which is really going to ruin our students and not going to be able to help us in the future. We can also see that it has happened in the past 3 years. In the past 3 years, California has faced almost $20 billion deficit, and that's really, really bad. And even in the future, from 2015 to 2016, there will be a predicted another $20 billion deficit, which is basically taking a big toll on our students and of our students today. So I would like to go back to my main point, which is basically that California's educational system has simply just become underfunded. And we can see that through my 3 main points. The first one again being that the students aren't getting the new teaching materials that they need, and also they're facing a lot of many different programs being cut. And my second point, which is being that teachers are getting laid off, and students aren't getting the proper education that they need from higher educated teachers. And my third point, which is that the state educational system is facing too many budget cuts, and the students of today aren't going to be learning anything in their high schools and universities. Thank you.
All right, well, the Pokemon attention device, I'm not sure that it works very well, but at least you're trying to get us started somehow. You have a pretty clear statement of what your claim is. There's a good preview of what the supporting points are going to be. The signpost of those points is always clear. There's good labeling on all of that, so I think you're doing okay structurally. The first point, you've got a whole bunch of assertions. There's no evidence on any of the first point that you provide at all. There's no source citation provided on that. On the second point, you've got some source cites that you provide, but it does sound on the second one a little confusing. You mentioned the number of people in the layoffs in San Diego Union School District, and it's 20% of the students. And then the next thing I know, we're getting 20% laid off in Long Beach and 20% off in, I think it was Anaheim. I don't remember what all the numbers that you were. And now you're adding it together and you're getting 60%. And that's not the way those numbers work. And I'm not sure how you've reached the conclusion that you did with the citation that you have. I think one of the problems is that you're trying to summarize the content of articles instead of just giving us direct quotes from those articles, and as a consequence, the evidence ends up being a little bit vague. You have 2 examples of, I wasn't sure if it was the LA School District or if it's the state that's talking about making this change to the number of units that's required to graduate from high school, and D being a passing grade. So if it's LAUSD that's making those proposals, then that's a little bit more limited. If it's a statewide proposal, that would change the inference and make it a lot broader. Basically, the only consequence, though, is you've got a hypothetical D engineer, and you suggest that because somebody's passing with a D that they're inadequate to do the job. I think that it's probably a safe premise, but I think you could use a little bit of proof on that. On the third point, I don't think there's a lot of controversy that there are budget shortfalls. The question is, have the budget shortfalls affected the education that students are currently getting? And I think that that's where that first point needed to be developed a little bit more, and you don't really do that. There's a very good solid summary at the end of the speech reminding us of the point that you're trying to make. All right, thank you.